Perhaps surprising in an age of Muppets Most Wanted and the Lego Movie, an epic drama that draws its inspiration from the Hebrew Scriptures opened in the top spot last weekend. Noah is not the first in the recent spate of religiously themed films, but it's certainly the biggest so far. And I'm very pleased to be able to welcome Noah co-writer and co-executive producer Ari Handel to State of Belief Radio.
Hi, Reverend. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate your presence very much. When did you first start thinking about bringing the Noah story back to the big screen?
Well, it was over 10 years ago. We've been even writing it since 2003, so I think we were thinking about it even earlier than that.
I'm curious, to work on it that long and to spend as much money as you spent.
Yes.
Did this story have some personal attraction for you?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think everyone is drawn to this story.
Mm-hmm.
It's an extremely powerful story. I mean, there's a reason why it's one of the best-known names from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason why every kid on the planet knows about it, whether they're religious or non-religious. You know, in China and India and everywhere, the Noah character is incredibly well known.
Right.
Because there's something fundamentally powerful about this story.
Right. Let me ask you, and I may be splitting hairs here, but was it important to you and attractive to you because it was a great story or because it was a great Bible story?
Both.
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 And
and that's not splitting hairs because, look, as a filmmaker and a writer, I'm drawn to great stories.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
But because this was a Bible story, not only was it a great story, but the depth of the questions and the themes that it allowed you to wrestle with and think about and explore was that much richer. And so that was just a very unique opportunity to be able to take a story like this and really get deep into it because it rewards that kind of attention.
Yeah. I know that there has been a lot made of the fact that Hollywood is really committed to making a lot of religiously themed films in 2014. Are there particular challenges in making a religiously themed film?
Sure. There's various kinds of challenges. First, there's the challenge of translating a story from one medium to another and trying to remain faithful to it when you, at the same time, are making it work dramatically in another medium and trying to mine it for, a lot of these stories, especially in early Genesis,
mm-hmm.
they're not told in a traditional way we expect in a kind of a modern story or a story that's not from the Bible. They have a parable nature to them.
Mm-hmm.
They reward questions. They're something that you interact with dynamically. You don't just tell the story. You talk about the story. You think about the story. You debate about the story. And themes and questions come out of that living interaction with a biblical story.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that in a film? How do you create that kind of dynamic? Well, what you end up doing is creating conversation around the film and posing questions and answering those questions in one way that leaves room for other ways to be presented. So
mm-hmm.
It is quite challenging. It's quite challenging to do.
Sure. When you saw the film the first time, did you say, we nailed it, we got it right? Did you feel really good about it?
Yes, although we nailed it, it becomes complicated at that point because, we had a script at some point, and then we went to shoot the script, and then we went to edit what we shot, and so then you come back with your final product and you say, okay, there's always going to be differences between what you have at that time and what you set out to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because the actors come and bring something. The vagaries of the realities of shooting on the set, the weather, everything, the set designers, the props men, the costumes, everything brings something to it that changes it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes in ways that are great, sometimes in ways that are unexpected, but you end up with something that is different. So then, at the end, when you put all that together, the question you then have is, does this capture the essence and heart of what it is that you set out to do in the first place?
Yeah.
And I'm thankful to say that I felt like it did.
Well, I mean, I know that you're not surprised that you're getting criticism. I think that a lot of the criticism that I've heard is either naive or it's borderline offensive. We are taping this interview today in Macon, Georgia. It is very different for a crowd in the theater in Macon to watch this film and a crowd in New York City to watch this film. And so you're getting charged with being not biblical enough and also too biblical. How are you responding to that?
Well, look, all we could do and what we did is to look at the Genesis story, honestly ask ourselves, what is this story making me think about? What questions is it raising for me? What hard problems is it putting forward that I have to grapple with?
Mm-hmm.
What emotions is it pulling up in me?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do I be true to those feelings and questions and thoughts and emotions, dramatize those, put those on the screen, and hope to make other people feel some of those same things?
Mm-hmm.
And do that in a way which does not contradict anything in Genesis, but at the same time upsets expectations enough that people can let go of their preconceived notions of what the story is exactly in order to come to it fresh and exposed, and raw a little bit, so they can really engage. That's all we can do. I feel like we did that. We tried to do that. And then if that leads to controversy, controversy is okay if what it is people talking and thinking and dialoguing and debating. Once it becomes people yelling at each other, then it's not really that constructive anymore.
Right.
So hopefully most of the controversy about this film, especially once people start to see it and to see it open-mindedly, will become debate and dialogue, and less of it will be about, name-calling and people getting mad at each other.
That is so well said. And Ari, I don't have to tell you, but if people are reading the Bible and it's not controversial, they're not reading it very well.
That's kind of what I'm saying. It's like these are stories that need to be engaged with actively. They're not presented. They're presented to us in ways, like I said, they're parabalistic. They're presented in a way that we're supposed to be asking questions.
Right.
They reward asking questions. There are contradictions in them and confusions in them at first glance that it's only by thinking about them more strongly and more carefully that you start to get into some of the deeper and second layer meaning.
Ari, I'm interested. I'm sorry. I know we're limited in time, and there's something personal I want to ask you, and that is, what if anything did doing this project mean to you personally?
Well, I mean, it's funny. When I started working on this, I was a single man, and during the process of writing this film, I had 2 children, and I've been raising those 2 children. They're now 4 and 7.
My goodness.
And so I started to see this movie and this story a lot through the eyes of family and of children and fathers. And, the Noah story starts with a genealogy. Adam begat.
Yes.
And it ends with a genealogy, as it tells us what happened to Noah's sons' children.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot here about the responsibilities of parenting. And you can think of God in the story really as a parent to humanity, and he has to figure out a little bit whether to treat their transgressions with justice or with mercy.
That's a brilliant.
And I saw a big parallel with that of how I try and raise my children. and what is the right pathway to taking care of your children. So I found a lot of deep import in it. But I guess the biggest thing is the more you look at this story and the deeper you get into the story, the more it tells you.
Oh, well, that's a brilliant statement, and I understand what wisdom you brought to this. I just one more question.
Yes, sir.
When people leave the theater, if you had your way, what would they be thinking or feeling?
You know, I hope that people will come out and they will have been knocked on their heels a little bit because it wasn't what they thought they were going to see, and that there was something different there than what they expected, and that they felt something, and that I hope that they're going to come out with a strong drive to turn to the person next to them, maybe not right away, maybe in 2 hours, and want to talk about what they saw and think about it and discuss it, because hopefully it didn't just lay out answers, but posed a lot of questions that are worth discussing. So if that happens, I would be very happy.
Ari Handel is co-writer with director Darren Aronofsky of the #1 film in this country, Noah. Mr. Handel, I really do appreciate not only your time, but you certainly have given us a good insight into the question-raising, kind of stimulating of the brain that ought to happen in a film like this. You did it well, and we're very grateful for an interview with you.
Well, thank you for saying so.
Take care of yourself.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.